What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and today we're going to be talking about some secret Black Ops 6 details, surprises for the storyline, and even more. Definitely stay tuned. But before we jump into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, drop a like, and as a big reminder, we got plenty of brand new article coverage going up on detonated.com for those that want to stay up to date with all things Call of Duty. Now, I'm happy to finally announce that as of a few days ago, Stockpile finally launched over on the website. This is a feature that has been in development for several months. It was pretty difficult to put together, but it does allow you to see every single bundle in MW2 and 3 with support for Warzone 1 era bundles coming in the next few weeks. Then of course there'll be an integration for Black Ops 6 once bundles start dropping in that game, probably with Season 1. We have another very big feature coming to the site, probably close to the launch window of BO6, and I'm very excited to see everybody's reaction to all of that. But with that, I've had plenty of Black Ops 6 content on deck for you guys over the last few days while I've been settling at home with the new baby. Things have been fantastic. I appreciate all your kind words over on Twitter and in my videos comments. But let's start off with some of the new sorts that did drop on the Call of Duty YouTube channel. So I'm sure more have come out since I've recorded this video, but from when I'm recording this, we got one about Harrow, a new character who was trained in espionage by Russell Adler. She looks a lot like Kate Laswell from Modern Warfare, but I know she's not the same person. And we also have one about Troy Marshall, the new Woods protege, who actually survived the bombing in 1983, but I do think the dynamic is very interesting here in BO6 with the fact that we have characters trained by some of our OGs from the original Black Ops games and even Cold War. Really curious to see where the narrative goes, but speaking of such, the COD Pod just a few days ago did provide us all with a ton of secret details that I'm sure you guys may have missed if you didn't watch the whole thing. Obviously, there was new details also shared about multiplayer and zombies, which I've already broken down in some previous videos, but as far as the campaign goes, they did confirm that Bell did indeed die at the very end of the Cold War campaign. For those thinking that maybe Adler didn't kill him or that Bell could have survived somehow, he is dead. They also mentioned that Treyarch does have a canon BO2 ending set in stone, and I believe what that means is that yes, the futuristic missions of Black Ops 2 are still canon, and as far as which ending is canon, they did mention for maybe the 100th time now that Alex Mason is indeed dead. Now, the marketing slogan, which is the truth lies, it's great and all, but I think it's frustrating whenever the studio comes out and confirms something now for BO6, and you have people all over the replies on Twitter, Reddit, YouTube saying, oh, well, that's probably not true because the truth lies. And I get what people are thinking, right? I know that clip they shared in the recent story recap video does show the exact moment where Mason actually gets shot in the leg, not the head. I know that exact frame was shown in that video, hence why people are speculating that maybe Woods really didn't kill Mason and it's all a big diversion for some reason. I think that was just an editing error during production of that video. But Treyarch also said during the pod that we're going to be doing, and I quote, awful things to some teammates at some point in the BO6 campaign. So I'm suspecting maybe some type of betrayal or something crazy that we just aren't expecting at all. But they also went ahead and confirmed for us that Cold War's post-season story is indeed canon. For those that have not caught up on the narrative from seasons 1 through 6 of Cold War, I'd recommend doing so because all of that really explains why Adler is the way that he is in Black Ops 6. He went through a lot in those 6 seasons, right? He was brainwashed by Stitch and Perseus, which had him do some not so great things over in Verdansk, and I'm sure all that's going to be referenced quite a bit throughout the Black Ops 6 single player. But speaking of Perseus, it was confirmed that the new villain group called Pantheon isn't Perseus, right? These are separate entities entirely, and yes, I'm aware Perseus still exists in present day according to Modern Warfare and Rebirth, so we're probably going to learn a little bit more about what happened to Perseus maybe later in BO6 or even in what's rumored to be the futuristic Black Ops game that could be coming out around a year from now. But speaking of the future, Treyarch also mentioned that some old characters from Black Ops 2 who survived are going to be returning, right? People that survived the canon ending are going to be coming back, and I'm assuming they're just talking about from the 80s missions of that game, not 2025, because we're obviously not getting any flash forwards to my understanding in Black Ops 6. The full single player takes place in around 1991, 1992-ish. So as far as who could return, feel free to drop your best bets down below in the comments, but as far as fan favorites go, I'm trying to think of who that could be. Unfortunately, the actor who plays Menendez passed away a little while ago, so I doubt it would be him, but maybe Noriega could make a cameo or something in BO6 to tie up some more loose ends, because obviously what they're doing brilliantly, according to recent marketing, is they're going to go ahead and say that Adler was the quote-unquote mole that unfortunately gave Menendez intel, and then all of that led to Frank Woods accidentally killing Mason. That's the story they're going with right now, even though we know Adler isn't the mole, he was just framed for it. I find that really interesting. Now, they also went ahead and said that a fan favorite character is coming in Season 1, and I wonder who that could be, right? There's a lot of different choices as to who that could be for a Black Ops update, but shall I remind you, it was teased over at the COD Next event that the Replacer is going to be playable in BO6 at some point, so maybe either in the Season 1 Battle Pass or through a bundle that releases at some point in the first season, we'll be able to pick up the Replacer and could experience a new voice line similar to what we did in Black Ops 4 with that playable Replacer operator. Now, I've seen a lot of confusion about what's going on with the current Black Ops timeline, and I know the timeline that Treyarch showed us at an event back in June, I know that timeline didn't exactly mention the Black Ops 2 futuristic missions. Maybe they just didn't want to put BO2 on that timeline twice. It just showed BO2 1980, which took place, of course, before Black Ops 6. However, Black Ops 3 and 4 are on that timeline, with BO4 being a prequel to BO3. I know that's a bit confusing if you guys didn't play Blackout or the specialist stories of that game, but in order for Black Ops 3 to be canon, Menendez would have had to have been killed. BO3's campaign directly references the fact that Menendez was killed back in 2025, so that means the canon ending is where David Mason ends up shooting him. So with all that in mind, that can tell you exactly what parts of Black Ops 2 are canon. We know that Alex and Hudson die, and we then know that Menendez dies at the very end, which obviously turns him into a martyr, but sets up the events of what we saw in Black Ops 3. Now, I know we've gone through a lot already, but I do want to reiterate that inside of the recent blog post for the Black Ops 6 campaign, it doesn't explicitly mention that Reznov died. Now, it might not mean anything, right? Because they don't even really mention that Stitch died, and we'll get back to that in a second, but when it comes to Victor Reznov, it just mentions that they were separated. It doesn't explicitly say that he was killed after trying to leave Vorkuta like Hudson told Mason back in the BO1 story. And I made a full dedicated video several months ago talking quite a bit about the John Trent conspiracy and how there were several teasers planted throughout Black Ops 1 that may actually have implied Reznov actually survived the events of that game and tried to warn people that Mason was going after JFK, which we know he did at the very end of the post-credits of BO1. So with all that into account, we're actually going back to Vorkuta in a variety of ways in Black Ops 6. First off, the campaign. There's a whole mission where we have to go back, and this might end up topping Echoes of a Cold War, which is a really cool nostalgic mission that we had in Cold War. That mission was great and brought us back to Mount Yeventau, but can't even imagine what's going to happen when we go back to Vorkuta 30 years after the events of that prison breakout. Will we finally learn in that mission what happened to Reznov? Will we at least get some closure that yes, he did die, here's his body, here's his grave, or here's the whereabouts of this John Trent character? And in the video I made many months ago, which I highly recommend checking out, I do also play with the idea that maybe Mason just went absolutely schizo and was emailing himself, was pretending to be the John Trent character, because it was like this internal battle between his real self and this brainwashed, confused version of himself that was going off to do some awful things. We know the numbers also stuck with him for quite a while, and he even saw the numbers in the Black Ops 2 1980s mission when apparently Reznov rescues Mason and Woods in Afghanistan. So there's so many unanswered questions as to what exactly is going on with Victor Reznov, and maybe there's more than meets the eye, with Treyarch not explicitly mentioning in the blog that Reznov died. They've continuously told us that Alex Mason died, but I think it's been a really interesting mystery over the last decade trying to figure out what exactly happened to Victor Reznov. And don't forget, we're also going to be seeing a multiplayer map for 6v6 and the strike experience called Pit, which also takes place in Vorkuta. So I'm sure we can end up finding some secrets somewhere around those environments that give us some better clues. But the last thing I'll end with is in regards to Stitch, the villain of the Cold War post-launch story who was very well received and became very popular rather quickly. This is an individual that Adler also apparently killed at the very end of Season 6. We never really saw the shot go off, we heard it, but we never saw a body. So could Stitch pop up at any point in the Black Ops 6 narrative? I'm gonna guess that Adler probably killed him, but the fact they didn't mention that in the blog post either is pretty odd. They do show us a picture of Stitch in the story recap video, but they don't exactly mention that Adler went ahead and wiped Stitch's entire crew over in Verdansk, which we did see, I guess, a glimpse of in Season 6. We know that Adler and crew go into Verdansk and go after all of Stitch's allies, but we never really see any of the allies killed. We're just assuming that they died off screen, but I'm sure there's plenty of opportunity for all of that to be followed up on in the coming months. Now, I will end with the fact that we also never really got a follow-up to that cutscene that we saw at the very beginning of Vanguard Cycle, where the Black Ops crew actually met with Butcher over in a Verdansk bunker, and that was a really interesting cutscene that I thought was going to be setting up a fairly rich post-launch post-launch story for Vanguard, but it really didn't. And maybe it was setting that up, but because of the poor reception to that game, they changed trajectory of the entire DLC structure of Call of Duty Vanguard and, of course, Warzone Caldera. But it's also possible that they can follow up a bit on Perseus and even the Pantheon and kind of connect to whatever that cutscene was trying to explain to us with the Butcher influence, right? Who actually knows what's going on there? But figured I'd bring that up in the case any of that is relevant for the BO6 campaign or even the post-launch. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave our thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on the brand new details for the single player that were shared over in the recent COD pod? How are you feeling about the potential return of Reznov and the fact that Black Ops 2 is indeed canon, both the 1980s missions and even the 2025 ones? Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.